So, tell you a little bit about the history, which you've probably already heard most of it. The first section, as you come in the driveway on the right, is the oldest section that was developed first back in the early 1900s. That's where a majority of the Confederate soldiers are buried. There's 54 of them in the cemetery. Okay, I think y'all started with the Henderson marker, the gentleman who fought in 17 battles and walked home barefooted from Virginia. And then the plantation owner, Mr. Sigler, where the statue is, he's a big cotton farmer in Aiken County. And of course, cotton was the product that everybody had back in that period. And Graniteville Company and Augusta, Georgia had textile mills. So that's where all the textile and the cotton was going to at that period of time. So that's the first section that was developed. There's two sections over there. Then the next section, as you come in, the entrance on the left, this was going down Highway 19, and then that was developed. Then starting on this section, going down, and then the last section and around the perimeter is the very back section of the cemetery. In the early 1950s, the center section was developed. Okay, you can see a little bit difference in style in the center section versus the older sections. The highest marker in the center section is no more than 32 inches in height. We have a columbarium here, which holds 80 niches, 40 on each side, and we're getting ready to put another one in right in front of this one here. South Carolina Historical Commission, you've probably already been told that to walk through Bethany Cemetery is to walk through the history of Aiken. And as you walk, I'm sure you'll Mayor Odell Weeks is right down here on the right. Roland Wyndham was the City of Aiken administrator. Gene Thurman is in the back corner here, which is Strom Thurman's first wife. He is buried in Edgefield, South Carolina. And as you can see on the markers, back in that period of time, they spent money on markers. The obelisks you have, the taller markers are there, markers, and as you come around, they get smaller as you come around the whole cemetery. And then the smallest ones, of course, in the middle section, which was done in the 1950s. Anybody have any questions?
How many acres in all?
Well, there's 15 acres in the first section that is developed, and there's 15 acres in the back, which hasn't been developed yet. There's room for 9,000 graves there. I don't think I'll ever see that.
I hope not.
Kind of hope you don't.
No. And
That's all right.
the back portion there is the Jewish section. Y'all probably already
We
been
were
there.
already, yeah.
Okay.
Scott. I'm one of 6 children that Mackie Jr. and Barbara had. I was the favorite, so I got elected to. No, just kidding. I'll start here with my grandmother, Miss Rita. She died in 1950. I never knew my grandmother. She died 4 years before I was born. I think maybe 2 grandchildren were born back. The oldest was probably 2. But anyway, the little bit that I do know about my grandmother, she ran a country store that my grandfather built back in the 30s. The store is still there today. It's not in operation, but the building is still there. If you know where New Holland Road is and 302, in the fork of the road, that's the store that my grandmother ran that my grandfather built. Dad told me, if you're familiar with where that store is now, it used to sit further off back into the woods. He said they put it on some logs and rolled it to the location that it sits today. I remember the store before the front part of it was added on. It had 2 swinging doors on it. I remember getting my little finger hung up in that door. It was rough. But anyway, she ran the store. grandfather built the store. At the same time, he built a cotton gin back in 1937. The cotton gin sat behind where the store is. When you come on around the curve, you can see remnants of some of the old warehouses. The cotton gin is no longer there. We tore it down years ago because people would go in there and start stealing the wiring and whatnot. Like I say, it was built in 37. Dad upgraded it in the 60s. It stayed that way until 1996. That was the last year I ran it. Technology just finally caught up with it. We could have spent gobs of money upgrading it, but you would never made that back. All the cotton that's grown around this area now, most of it goes over toward Orangeburg, South Carolina. My grandfather ran all of Aiken County back in the day with one other gentleman. The other man happened to be a Scot also. I don't think he was any relation. But if you're familiar with the farmer's market, the green two-story building that sits on the corner of Richland and Williamsburg, that was my grandfather's office. Like I say, he ran the county. Back then is when you had the chain gang camps. That's how everything was kept up around here. And I never realized it, but if you're at the farmer's market, read that plaque that's out there on the front. It tells you how it was built by the chain gang camp. But anyway, that's a little bit of what my grandfather did. Like I say, he worked for the county. Years ago, when Highway 302, which used to be 215, was being built, he dug out a gravel pit right across from this store that I'm talking about. That gravel pit became known as Scott's Lake. There was a spring that would feed that gravel pit. Back in the day, 50s and 60s, that was where everybody went swimming. If you see some of Alan Riddick's photos and some of his books, Scott Lake, there's a picture of Scott's Lake in there. Everybody pay a dime, go swimming, have a ball. We've got some old photographs of the sliding board there. And then the curve of the road, there's some old cars lined up on that road. And it used to have a dance hall upstairs above the girls' dressing room. And legend has it that Fats Domino played in that dance hall. I don't know. I was too young to know. But anyway, that's part of what my grandfather did. Mackey Jr. was my father. He was a cotton farmer. I farmed with Dad for 25 years. We ran, like I say, we ran the cotton gin. 96 was the last year that I ran it. He was Southeast Farmer of the Year one year. I don't remember what year, but he was very good at his craft. If he couldn't make it grow, it wouldn't grow. That's just, I mean, he loved his cotton plant. We would grow cotton, corn, soybeans, wheat, but cotton was the main thing. Probably the most acres we farmed back in the day was probably 1,100 acres. If you're familiar with Old Navy, where Old Navy is, that was a big field. We never planted cotton there. It was mainly soybeans and corn there. But starting there and working back down Pine Log, all down Pine Log was cotton fields. Citizens Field, the newer part of Citizens Field that butts Banks Mill, that was cotton field. We leased that land from a gentleman named Norman Woodward. That white building right there off of Banks Mill, that's one of the city offices, that was Mr. Woodward's house. He sold that property to the city back in the early 90s at a very, very good price. The city did real well with that. But we farmed all that and then all back toward Montmorency and whatnot. My mother, she was a piano teacher. She played piano for the Heart Fund for years. She had 2 baby grands in the living room of our house that we grew up in. She would teach off of those 2 baby grands. She got 1 piano player out of the 6 of us. That was a sister. And then Dad got 1 farmer, me. So I guess they did all right. But I hated taking piano lessons from my mother. It was just, I regret to the day that I never learned how. I can't play a note. It was something about you would go in there, you will practice piano for 45 minutes a day. And that just didn't sit well with me back then. And to tell you a funny story, I don't know if it was me. If it was me, I don't remember it. But you know how you pull the board down to cover up the keys? Well, if I did it, I don't remember, but somebody carved PA into that board. She later on had it sanded out and fixed, but she always blamed me for trying to put my name into that. But, one of the pianos she donated to PC College, and the other one my sister has up in Greenwood. I just brought, this is my dad. This is what the old cotton gin looked like, some of it. Oh, that's a cotton picker there. One of the old first ones. That building is no longer there, but I don't know exactly where that picture was taken, but it could be right there on Banks Mill. But that's Dad and the cotton gin. Yeah, it's some good memories coming out here today, seeing all the people that have spoken. I know everybody, just about. Mr. Shellhouse grew up maybe a quarter to a half a mile down from where I grew up. So we knew. I've known Robbie forever. The young lady across here, Marie Tewkesbury, known her forever. Went to school with her brothers. She went to school with my younger sisters. She was a great basketball player along with one of my sisters at Aiken High. Saraski's down here, I've known forever. Their son was good friends with my son. So it just, and trying to think about what I wanted to say just brought back all kind of memories today, all kind. But it's been good. I'm glad to meet folks. Yep. Yep.
It is, isn't it?
Yep, been a nice day too. I'm glad it was.
Thank you. So, I'm Marie Tewkesbury, and I know Maria and Margaret. So y'all can tell everybody.
These are birther people. We're birthing long-time Aiken people.
Well, and that's what I was gonna. Who is born and raised Aiken? Great, wonderful. You have family here?
No.
Okay. All right. So you'll learn. You may recognize a few names. So.
Me here.
That's what you got. Yeah, I am
has
here.
so many stories, and I love coming here and walking around and saying hello to the family. And so just to kind of put things in perspective, I'm going to go back about 4 generations here in the cemetery. Aiken, the city of Aiken, was incorporated in 1835. Kind of put things in perspective. Aiken County was incorporated in 1871, and that was taken from parts of Edgefield, Lexington, Orangeburg, and Barnwell. So that was 1871. Bethany was founded in 1892. So we're all back into the 1800s. And today I'm going to talk about Daniel Sullivan Henderson and James Preston McNair. Start with Daniel Sullivan. We called him DS, and you're going to pick up a lot on initials. Daniel Sullivan DS Henderson lived from 1849 to 1921, and his marker is See the soldier over here?
Yeah.
2 over, kind of a white marker with kind of a rounded pointy type. Okay, that's where Daniel Sullivan is buried. He was born in Walterboro, South Carolina. 2, his father was Daniel Henderson and mother Caroline Rebecca Webb. And 1 month after he was born, his mother died. And so he was kind of raised by his oldest sister. In 1872, 1 year after Aiken County was founded, he was admitted to the bar. He moved to Aiken. He opened up a law office, and his mentor was a man, Perno Finley, who was a friend of his father's. In 1877, his brother, by his father's second marriage, Edward Palmer Henderson, he lived from 1854 to 1938. Edward Palmer moved to Aiken from Walterboro, and he worked in the law firm. And I think back then you went to work in a law firm to learn law, not necessarily to go to school. So Edward Palmer was admitted to the bar in 1880, and he joined the firm as a lawyer, and they called the firm Henderson Brothers. And his marker is between the soldier and his father, the smaller one, kind of in that area. And y'all will walk around, you'll see that there. In 1899, Daniel Sullivan Henderson, his son, Perno Finley, wonder where he got that name, or P. Finley, or P.F. Henderson. He joined the law firm, and then they renamed it to Henderson's. He is in the plot with his father. In 1910, Edward Palmer Henderson's son, Elmore Sullivan Henderson, joined the firm, and he was admitted to the bar in 1912, and he became a lawyer with the Henderson law firm. And there's my grandfather.
Oh.
Right there. Later, the Henderson law firm became Henderson Sally, because it was Julian Sally Sr. and Julian Sally Jr. It then became Henderson, Sally, Cushman, and Bodenheimer. There are a lot of names. Today, does anybody know what the law firm is?
Oh, Barrett.
Hull Barrett, yes. Their website used to have this great write-up of the history. And I went to pull it up, and it wasn't there. So I called Bill Tucker and said, Bill, where is it? He has all the history. He'll get it to me. But their website does say that the law firm proudly serves the CSRA for over 100 years. And that was the beginning of Daniel Henderson coming. Edward Palmer Henderson, my great-grandfather, married Harriet Lee Johnson, and they had 5 children. But 2 sons died of diphtheria in 1892. Benjamin Johnson was 7 years old and Frazier was 2 months old. Both are buried in Bethany, the year that Bethany was founded. And my family has always said that those children were the first ones buried here in Bethany. And so I got to talk to Rob Shellhouse yesterday to say, is that true, is that true? And he pulled up some documents that says most likely. So I think about Edward Palmer losing children, and then as I was going through a lot of Henderson stuff, which the family keeps stuff forever and ever and ever, there's a little book that Edward Palmer has, and he has written in it his name. And the first little thing is, little boy, good night. This just breaks your heart. Oh, little dead boy lying still, so still, I shall meet you someday where stars shine bright. But now we must part, 'tis the Lord's will. So my little dead boy, good night, good night.
Oh.
And I think about these people who were building Aiken County, and they had lives a lot like us, just family life. So I thought that that was kind of neat. E.P. Henderson lived in a house at 312 Horry Street. The house was later named Let's Pretend. All these houses had names, you know. He said that he felt the low and boggy area had something to do with the deaths of his sons. So in 1894, he purchased property on the block. Think about where this is. Lawrence, across from the old public safety. Edgefield runs down the side to Newberry, and a little Henderson Lane comes back into Lawrence right behind the Presbyterian Church. So he purchased that property. Not exactly sure who built the house. We think he did. But the house was in the Henderson family until 2 years ago when Alex Henderson sold the house. And as you're riding up, it now has another for sale sign in front of it. I remember when I was growing up, they had this observatory in the backyard, this metal structure that's now up at the, we used to play on
The
that.
Transit of Venus.
I know.
Yeah.
And that was pretty neat, but it sat in the backyard forever and ever and ever. So all of these folks here, to me, I've realized they were all a part of building the Aiken community, and they worked with each other. So you're not going to see their name as founding such and such, but they were a part. Daniel Sullivan and his son were very involved in the Aiken Institute. Aiken Institute was
Now the library.
now the library. P.F. Henderson wrote a short history of Aiken, which is, you can find this at the
Interesting.
antique mall for a good price. They were all Presbyterians. First Presbyterian. They probably started meeting with First Presbyterian when First Presbyterians were meeting in the town hall down on Park Avenue, and then finally were able to build the first church, the second church, the third church. And I just found out Friday that the Henderson Hotel,
Now the City Hall.
that brick building, City Hall, it looks just like the hotel used to look, was named for D.S. Henderson and C.K. Henderson. And y'all are going to learn about C.K. Henderson right over there with that rectanglish looking marker. So that's the Hendersons. Now let's look real quickly at James Preston McNair. James Preston McNair is the pointy monument right behind C.K. He was born in 1860 in Robeson County, North Carolina. Came to Kitchens Mill, and he married Cora Kitchens in 1885. And they lived in Kitchens Mill. And James Preston came to this area. He was in the mercantile business. He was a farmer in Kitchens Mill. But he also operated an extensive turpentine business, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida. Turpentine comes from
Pine trees.
longleaf pines, and that's how he came into this area. Now, his daughter is my grandmother, Mary Henderson, and she has this great story. Years ago, they had a 125th anniversary of the church, and she was interviewed, and she tells the story of how her parents came to church from Kitchens Mill. They'd ride in their horse-drawn buggy to Windsor to get the train to Aiken in time for the church services. Fortunately, she said, someone was always kind enough to invite them to Sunday dinner. Afterward, they'd take the train back to Windsor and then the buggy on home. She said attending church back then was an all-day affair. The McNairs and their children moved to Aiken in the early 1900s. Their house, Margaret, you'll have to help me here.
Did he build that house?
I don't know. Their house was at the location of the current post office. And so, catty corner to the Hendersons. In 1906, a group of Aiken businessmen led by James Preston, Mr. JP, chartered a new bank as a commercial bank, and they named it
Farmers and Merchants.
See, you can give it the tour. Farmers and Merchants Bank. And JP was the first president and served for 35 years. Do y'all know where the Farmers and Merchants Bank is?
It still says
up top,
Yeah.
downtown Aiken, Lawrenson Park, okay? In 1911, 1912, now I think that Cora Kitchens died during this time. We don't, 1908 I think. 1911, 1912, the Farmers and Merchants Bank building was constructed by combining kind of an old Aiken County Loan Savings building had theirs and the Chatfield building, and I didn't know until Friday that underneath Farmers and Merchants it says Chatfield building.
Oh,
So I got a lot more to learn about that. In 1932, the Depression, so many banks were closing. The F&M was one of the few banks in the nation that remained open, closing only on bank holidays declared by the government. So for more than 75 years, F&M had only 3 presidents. First one is founder, first president, James Preston, from 06 to 1940. And then his son, Wallace Duncan McNair Sr., my grandmother's brother, who is buried right over here. I want to go walk out here too, but they said I couldn't, but we'll see.
Yeah, right.
He was president from 1941 to 1962. Wallace Duncan McNair's son, president, had a vice president named Philip Kitchen McNair, and Uncle Phil's right over here. Then James DeVore McNair was the 3rd president. He was the grandson of James Preston and nephew to Wallace. For some reason, he's out in Tabernacle Baptist Cemetery in Kitchens Mill. So that's where the rest of his family is. F&M was acquired by C&S, Citizens and Southern Bank, in 1983. Then C&S was acquired by Nations Bank. Then Bank of America closed in 2023. In 2014, now remember all these dates because we had those on history test, right? Chad Ingram purchased the F&M building from the Farmers and Merchants LLC. I don't even know about them yet. And in 2024, last year, the Aiken Standard said that Mr. Ingram and Rob Johnston are getting ready to try to convert the building into a restaurant and a hotel. And they're looking for family members to be able to tell what did the bank used to look like back when. I remember going through the drive-through, y'all do too, and getting lollipops. That was great.
Can I ask you a question? How's Dr. Phil McNair and Dr. Wallace McNair related to that?
Tell you
That's
right
okay.
now. Are you ready? So J.P. McNair had 6 children
Okay.
with his first wife, Cora Kitchens. She did die in 1907. The daughter, Mary McNair Henderson, is my grandmother. This is Manny. And Elmore Sullivan Henderson. The Hendersons, the McNairs. This is Momo. Mary McNair's brother, Wallace, was the bank guy. Wallace's son was Dr. Wallace.
Oh.
Dr. Wallace is way over there.
I'm supposed to take flowers.
Oh, good.
But they're Christmas ones, so I need to go to the store.
Yes. Dr. Wallace's daughter is Annie Dunbar, and she's right there, or here. Sister, yeah. Dr. Wallace's sister, Uncle Wallace's, yeah. This is how families get mixed up. And then Ann Manshine's marker is right over here. So that's where Cousin Ann will go. And then Uncle Phil, who worked at the bank, had a doctor son, Dr. Phil. So when I was little and got sick and I didn't want to go to school, my mom would say, well, I'm calling Dr. Phil. And all of a sudden I felt a lot better because he would always come to the house. Do you remember those days?
Yeah.
Give you a shot and say you'll be fine, and he'll send you off to school. Uncle Phil, brother, had 3 sons. Jim McNair. Jim McNair bought and owned the golf course, the Highland Park Country Club. We spent a lot of time there growing up. And his brother, his son, Jim McNair, owns it now, Aiken Golf Club. His second son was Dr. Phil. The third was Craig. Craig died early. He was married to Renee Young. When he died, Renee had 4 children, and she married Paul Tewkesbury. Well, Paul Tewkesbury, right up here, is my dad's brother. So don't ask me to explain my family.
Well,
All right, let's go back to James Preston. James Preston remarried, and they had 1 daughter, and her name was Elizabeth McNair. And Elizabeth McNair married Charles Marvin, and they're right over here. And Margaret's husband is James Marvin, and that was his mother. And I wanted to talk about Kaylin, but I know I'm running out of time because that's what my dad did.
oh yeah. Oh,
So-
tell us about it.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm not going to tell you about it, but I will tell you where to go get information. Kaylin is critical to Aiken and the railroads were critical. So in this book that P.F. Henderson wrote, he has a great, Aiken County was high in textile, but next in importance from a financial support standpoint, unique to the world, and it is unique. There are 2 places, pretty much in the world, but definitely in the United States, Aiken and Macon, where they mine kaolin. Y'all know what kaolin is? Okay, then I won't talk about that. Kaolin's been used as a filler in manufacture, coating white paper, coating for wallpaper, used in, I love this part, pottery, porcelain, and sanitary wares.
Yeah.
So where was that mine
Sinks
at?
and toilets.
Sinks and toilets.
Yeah.
That was that Richardson's Lake area?
Margaret, you can help better.
That used to be a kaolin pond. That's why it's so pretty.
It's up that way now, isn't it?
Out towards Kitchens Mill, what is
It's
Yeah.
down in Langley. That
Yeah.
was where the Huber plant was.
Oh.
But Huber was one of about 5 major, and I think Huber has since been bought out. So.
So I'm going to make an attempt. I'm Danny Brown. I'm a member of the Sons of Confederate organization here out of Aiken, South Carolina, and our company name is under the General Joe Wheeler camp. He was a general in the Confederate Army, and our camp is number 1245. We have about 24, 25 members. We meet at the Aiken Museum once a month. But I'm going to talk about Mr. Henderson. Keep him second on top of the graves. But anyway, Private Callaway Perksy Henderson. This is his grave. His wife, I think, on the other side. And here his is right here. And he was born in 1844 and passed away in 1922. And he was born in Trenton, South Carolina, in Edgefield County. That's just a few minutes, not far from here at all, maybe 20 minutes so. So that's where he was born. But he has actually lived most of his life here in Aiken. But his ranking in the Confederate Army was Company F. He was a private, and he was in the South Carolina Infantry, and that was a part of the great Northern Virginia Army, which was run by Robert E. Lee. So that's what this part of the South Carolina Infantry was a member of. But anyway, he fought, signed up right after the war started in 1861. And he was in the war until 1865, and I'll cover that in just a few minutes. One thing that I thought was unique about him when I started reading up, you can get closer if you want to, but on this side of his monument, there are 17 battles that he fought in during 1861 to 1863. Amazingly, he wasn't seriously injured in any of them. In 17, he fought in the Battle of Gettysburg, which we all know about that one. And there's some of the very popular battles there: Chattanooga, Richmond, Virginia, all skirmishes all around Richmond, Manassas. And the Battle of Manassas, the first one, he was, like I said, he was a private, and there was another private with him, and they were on night duty. And responsibilities were to oversee the Union Army, which was across the river. And in doing that, they noticed that that night, the Union Army was trying to send a group of soldiers or infantry around and flanker the. Sorry about that. I thought I had that turned off. But anyway, they were flanking the Confederate Army at night, and him and another lookout saw that, so they rushed back to the camp and they reported to General Beauregard and General Jackson what was going on. So they said, we are being flanked by the Union Army tonight. So the Confederate Army in turn was prepared for that the next day, so they counterflanked, and that probably saved thousands of lives, and it was very important in that particular battle. But like I said earlier, Private Henderson fought up until 1863, and at that point he was fighting in a smaller battle in North Anna River. At that point he was captured. He was put in a prison camp called Port Lookout in Maryland, and he stayed there until the end of the war in 1865. So you think he fought in 17 battles and was never seriously injured. I think of these guys, these men and women living in tents. It's freezing outside, and so many thousands of soldiers on both sides died of diseases and starvation, lack of clothing, lack of food, and he fought there for what, 2.5 years, and never suffered that type of situation. So when he went into a prison camp, you all hear horror stories about prison camps on both sides. Well, amazingly, he made it through that. So maybe he was very fortunate that he got put in a prison camp and he wasn't fighting anymore. I don't know, but fortunately he lived through that. At the end of the war, the story is told that when he was released, he walked all the way from Virginia to Aiken barefoot. So that was one of the things that's noted in his historical writings. But another thing that about Mr. Henderson, he was very, very popular here in the Aiken area when he came back home. If you're familiar with the city of Aiken, you got First Baptist Church of Aiken. For quite a few years, he was actually the superintendent of the Sunday school at Aiken First Baptist Church. And he had a son named Frank Henderson, and Frank Henderson was actually served numerous terms as the mayor of Aiken. So the Henderson family is very, very well known here in the Aiken area. And like it says, he died in 1922. I think his wife died in 1926. Her burial is on the other side, and here he is right here, Mr. Henderson. So that's pretty much all I've got about the Mr. Henderson here. If anyone got any questions that I might can answer. But anyway, there are 54 graves in this cemetery that are Confederate veterans. They'll tell you all about that later on. And not a single one of those 54 Confederates died in the war. So what a blessing. But they're going to tell you more about that. Now, the man here in the black is Mr. Ken Temples. He's also a member of our camp. He's got a little leaflet he's going to give you that covers all 54 Confederate soldiers that are buried here in Bethany Cemetery. It's a little bit about each one of them.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance today. Hope you have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about Captain Aquila S. Siegler. His monument's right here behind us. I'm going to say his likeness on top. But he was in Company D of the 22nd South Carolina Infantry. He was born on August 23rd, 1839, and died July 18, 1906. Little likeness of him. This is what we found. Sorry it's blurry, but you kind of get an idea of how it was. You know, taking that picture and trying to make it better for today is a little rough. But he first joined Captain John S. Hard's regiment. His dedication, honor, and driven attitude, he quickly got promotions. So he transferred to another company and became its captain. His war record was impeccable. The best war record of anybody that we've seen. After returning home from the war, he was penniless, so he worked hard to overcome many adversities to become one of the Aiken County's most wealthy planters and farmers. He owned thousands of acres of valuable property. And during the Red Shirt movement of 1876, Captain Ziegler was one of the most prominent figures, rendering valuable service not just for the county but for the state. He served one term in the South Carolina State Legislature from 1884 to 1885. In 1908, he was elected as commander of Aiken's General Bernard E. B. Camp of the United Confederate Veterans, but later relinquished his leadership position after becoming ill, and he was a prominent Mason attending the Royal Arch degree. He was a member of Shiloh Baptist Church, and I believe that church is still in existence today. And I was told it was between 19 and number 1. Let's see. And he served there as a deacon. He was 67 years of age when he died after suffering for more than a year with cancer. And he was buried with Masonic honors, and his burial was attended by an honor guard of old Confederate veterans here. And then up until last year, the headstone and everything looked kind of like the one across. It had all the mold and I guess just the mildew and everything kind of grown up on it. And so the United Daughters of the Confederacy came in and cleaned it. And they used you buy the chemical from Lowe's and just go in, tell them you want to clean a headstone, they'll take you to the product. And so they cleaned it up really well, and that's why it looks so good today. So is there anything I might be able to help answer, or y'all have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank y'all.
Appreciate it.
How y'all doing today? I hope you're having a great day. It's beautiful out here. Bethany Cemetery is unique. It's got the largest Confederate veterans buried in any cemetery in Aiken County. As you heard, there are 54 Confederate veterans buried here. And you may wonder, how come there's so many since the war ended in 1865? The cemetery wasn't founded until 1892. Well, all these survived the war, of course, and they all lived in the Aiken area. What's interesting is there's an international contingency here. There's 4 were born in Germany, 1 was born in England, and 1 was born in Scotland. So you got kind of a flavor of different nationalities here as well. This section is called the Confederate Dead section. There's 42 Confederate veterans buried in this section alone. Also, there's 1 Spanish-American War veteran buried in this section. This is probably one of the oldest sections in the cemetery. That's the reason why I have all the cornice around, and the families, I guess, put that out when they bought the plots. They ended up putting that out to segregate their family plots. Here the Sons of Confederate Veterans camps. General Joe Wheeler put out Confederate marker, and this is just to honor the 54 Confederate veterans buried here. And then one of the camp members, John W. Olstein, donated a palm tree behind me. Many of y'all are familiar with John Olstein. Had been in the area a while. He lived out in Calston, had a cabin and all. He invited everybody to weekend around Thanksgiving to come and eat biscuits and go through this log cabin. And he had a little town, had a Liberty, and had a little schoolhouse, and you can actually visit the schoolhouse and his cabin out of the Battle of Aiken. So they moved it after he no longer lived there, and they relocated all that to the Battle of Aiken. So you can go through those, still today. One of the things we're doing is every year we have a Wreaths Across America ceremony, and we have it right at this location. And it's either the 2nd or 3rd Saturday in December. This year it's on December 13th. We're going to have it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we honor all 445 veterans buried in Bethany Cemetery. You kind of think, this doesn't look like somebody could have that many veterans, but there's 445 veterans. And unfortunately, they're adding new veterans all the time. and what I mean by unfortunately, people pass away. The local DAR chapter, Esther Marion chapter, puts puts American flags out on all the graves twice a year. They do it for Memorial Day and leave them out until after Flag Day, I think it's June the 5th. And then they go ahead and put them again for Veterans Day in November and leave them out till after, usually the end of January. And so that way it makes it easier to be able to put the wreaths out, because all the graves are marked with Confederate flags. That's easy to distribute the flags out. The reason why they take them out and put them back is because the DER is actually paying for the flags themselves. So they're trying to save as many flags as they can to reuse. If they left them out all the time, they'd have to replace them 2 or 3 times a year, and it gets to be a pretty expensive in order to do that with their chapter paying for it. So they try to go ahead and save the flags. At least they can go ahead and maybe use one set for the whole year. But anyway, what we've done about 3 years ago, we started honoring a Medal of Honor winner. And this past year we did Major General James Livingston. And you may wonder, how can a Major General be a Medal of Honor winner? Well, actually, he was awarded in Vietnam when he was a first lieutenant. He was a platoon commander. And what happens, platoon was ambushed by the Viet Cong. He managed to rally the troops and got them to safety, but ended up being wounded himself while he was doing that. And he made sure all his men were in safety before, as he was the last man out. And so he received the Medal of Honor. And fortunately, he's actually still living. He lives in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and he's retired from the Marine Corps. And also he's a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. So, it's, we try to do, like I said, every year honor somebody. So the first year we did was actually a brother of a good friend of mine who received the Medal of Honor winner in Vietnam. And unfortunately, he was killed in combat. He took on 5 machine gun nests of Viet Cong single-handedly with grenades, and had rifle in one hand and grenades in another hand. And he went through a rice paddy throwing grenades in the machine gun nest, and they finally got to the 5th one and he got shot down. And as he was falling, he threw the grenade in the machine gun nest and wiped it out and saved his company. And unfortunately, he was killed. And the saying goes, you rather have a dead hero or a live chicken. I think I'd would take the live chicken. But anyway, he was his sister, a friend of mine. They were honored as the family, and they named a conference room after him. Excuse me, in a fort in Kentucky. And they're all over. Y'all welcome to come. It's open to the public. Like I said, it's December 13th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Y'all come to the service and help put out the wreaths afterwards. So everybody, I'm glad to have y'all come. So any other questions? Anybody?
What is that?
That's a First National flag. Yes. And that's the DAR or the UDC flag. And so we put that out. It's not near as controversial as the battle flag. In fact, to me, it's actually a prettier flag. And it's originally called the Stars and Bars because you look at it, that's what it's really made of. It's basically stars and bars, but it's the First National flag.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
My name is Ronald Hahn Wade. I'm the Hahn. My mother was a Hahn, and that's how I got my Hahn. Can I tell you all a little trade secret? When you translate, that's a German name. You translate it into English, it means rooster or cock. Okay, so we got that down. This is a tough story to tell in a way because they use so many names over. And I'm going to start kind of with the 3 Herman Henry Hahns. One of them was this guy's, my great-grandfather, father. He had a son, Herman Henry Hahn, my grandfather, and then he had a son, Herman Henry Hahn, my uncle, And then he had two daughters, my mother and her twin sister, Christine and Edith. But that part's a little confusing. But the four original, the first Henry Hahn, that's how I'm going to put them, 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 came over here from Germany with 3 other brothers. They came to Charleston in about 1855, somewhere in that neighborhood. And they came from Ostend, Germany. And if you don't know where that's at, you probably wouldn't find it on a map. It's tough to find. It's between Bremerhaven and Cuxhaven, which is the Elbe River, goes out to the North Sea and runs on up to Hamburg. You know, Hamburg sits inland about like New Orleans does from the Gulf of America now, I guess. But anyway, then it's a real big farming area there, okay? And they were farmers, and they also raised horses and things like that, this type thing. Well, Herman, the first Herman, opened up a wholesale grocery business in Charleston on Market Street. And his brother, Henry, came to Aiken. They went in business together and said, Herman said, I'll bankroll it, you go to Aiken and open up a store up there for us. So he came up here shortly after that and opened up Hahn and Company here. And Hahn and Company is where Aiken Drug is now. Used to be, rather, on the corner there. And I don't know if y'all can see any of that, but on the corner of Lawrence and Richmond Avenue. And it really ran from down Richmond Avenue back to that vacant lot back there, that type thing. It had the upstairs and this type thing. And but Henry Hahn really kind of brought the Hahn part, this family, to Aiken. And he was here, and he also built the commercial hotel. And but during the Civil War, they 3 of the brothers, I think it was just 3 of them, he was one of them, Henry Hahn, and 2 other ones were in a German artillery group that fought for the Confederacy. And 2 of the brothers were killed. And Henry came back to Aiken after the war. The first Herman, Henry, ended up having to go back to Germany because he was the eldest. And on the European customs, the eldest always kind of took over the family type thing. So he went back, okay? And my great-grandfather, Herman Christian Hahn, was born there in Ostend. And Ostend is not a big town. It's a big farming area, and I think it's got about 600, 800 people in the town. And those farms over there, they don't do like farms over here where you live on the farm. They live more or less in the community, go back and forth out to the farm. But anyway, he came over here, and he was about in his late teens. I don't know exact days, but I think somewhere in about 1879. And Henry Hahn, the brother of the first Herman Henry, had a farm out of Highway 19. And he had 2 sons, and he had a wife, and that was from Germany also. And he lived with them, and he worked in the store on the corner down there until he got a little bit older. And when he got of age, he married my grandmother, Marina Schroeder Hahn, and this is kind of a coincidence. She was born here in Aiken, but her parents were from Ostend. And they came here, and they opened up a grocery store where Security Federal is on Main Street. So they're catty corner. So after a while, they finally decided we're competing against each other. This is family. This is kind of, you know. So he joined, went to Hahn and Company. He stayed over there in 1922, and he retired. Okay. My grandfather, the second Herman Henry Hahn, the son of this one, okay, he went to the Citadel, and after the Citadel, he went to the Army, and he had to go to World War I. He had to go to Germany, and he came back, and then he started running the store because my grandfather here, my great-grandfather here, went out and started taking over the farm because the other one passed. He died. He started going out there. Well, they had about 1,000 acres out there, and they raised cattle and sheep. And he did that, and my grandfather ran the grocery store, never went to the farm. He never had time. But his father, Christian, would come to every afternoon, come back to Aiken. He would stop by the store, make sure the money was there and everything, you know, and everybody collected. And he built, when they got married, he built the house where Casabella's is, that Italian restaurant. That was their first house, and he built that. And they lived there until he died, okay? And she died a few years earlier in 42. But anyway, they had 5 children. They had Christian Hahn, he died pretty young. And then they had Mary Hahn. Then they had 2 other daughters that lived in Winston and Hendersonville, North Carolina, when they got married. And the funny part about that, the one that married the guy from here, they went to Hendersonville, and I'll give you one guess what they opened up. A grocery store. Yeah. But the grocery store here was really much different than what you might like to think about a normal grocery store. This grocery store here, he had the first phone in Aiken. He had a direct line to Augusta. Just dial 9. And they had people that come there and use the phone all the time. They said, boy, the conversations, you wouldn't believe it sometimes. You know, they had some of the first, they had 2 pickup trucks with old-timey type deal. I remember my grandfather telling me one time he had to go to Augusta and came back, and they'd go off the old Sandbar Ferry Road, and he'd come down, that's just a Pine Log Road, he had a flat tire, and he had to walk back to town. And I said, well, what'd you do? He said, I just left it there. I said, why'd you do that? Said, nobody else had one. All they had was horses and buggies. So I walked back, and we went out the next day and fixed the tire and came on. I said, okay, I guess that'll work. But anyway, he stayed in, he died in 48, and my grandfather found out that he couldn't run the farm and the grocery store. And chain business, grocery stores were starting to come into existence at that time. But it wasn't quite like the same thing they had, because they did more than just groceries. Not only did they have the first, all that stuff, they also had a vault, or not a vault, but a big safe. And they were like a banker. People used to bring their money to them, and they deposited money with them, and they had like a bank. They didn't give them interest or anything, but they did that. They also would help with farmers. They would provide farmers money to plant their crops, and when the crops were harvested, they would repay them, that type thing. In the very back of the building, they had 2 rooms back there, so when some of the farmers they traded with would come here, and they, horse and buggy, they didn't have time to go back that same day. So they'd spend the night there and then go back. But they also did a lot of business because they had European connections still. They did a lot of business with the northern people that came to Aiken. They would order the kind of the French champagnes and the wines of Europe and the caviar and all that kind of stuff. And they would have people would call in before they would come down here for the winter to get their orders here in time. And then they would deliver them, that type thing. You walked in the store, they had big old baskets of fruit and stuff like that. And it closed a year before I was born, so I don't know anything about it. But my mother said people used to walk in there and they'd talk about the aroma of it. They always had fresh fruit out there every day. And my grandfather liked candy, so he always had baskets of candy out there and this type thing. But anyway, it all started with them. And after he passed away, my grandfather finally made his mind up. I'm gonna get out of the grocery store business, I'm gonna take up farming. So he took up farming, and he really liked it. He raised he had a big old bull here, and he actually was on the board and all that kind of stuff for the agricultural thing. Old Hahn Village down here, he was on the housing authority for 38 years, that kind of thing. But the Hahn name has been around quite a while, but and it's had a good bit to do with the development of Aiken and a lot of other families as well. But a lot of Germans came to this town. A lot of Germans in South Carolina came to this town, or this area. As you know, we got the Denmarks and the Norways and all those down there, those type of places as well. But that's the Hahn story. If I can tell you any more, feel free to ask.